War. War never changes. But will we? If you're familiar with the Fallout series, you've heard this phrase before. And for a game set in post-apocalyptic America, it's a fitting line. But besides sounding like something straight out of Clint Eastwood before he got old and wrinkly, what does it mean? And what does the Fallout series mean as a whole? Is Bethesda trying to tell us something with their counterfactual version of history? Or is Interplay Entertainment reminding us to fuck off because, like, hey, they made that shit first, you know? Only time will tell, but with Fallout 4 fast approaching, we only have so much time to figure this out. So spend some caps and settle in, Wastelander. Listen to the story you never knew. The Fallout games are set in an alternative version of America that never seemed to leave the 1950s. In this universe, the Red Scare never ended, McCarthyism became the norm, and sweet doo-wop tunes were never replaced by Lady Gaga. But what about all the little monsters? There they are, and they're pretty big now! Fun fact, in this world, the microprocessor was never invented, explaining why the Pip-Boy was such a marvel of technology despite being 5 times bigger than an iPhone. But besides that interesting tidbit, this version of America is nearly the same as its real-life counterpart. The only major difference being that tensions between the USA and the USSR never cooled as the Cold War raged on into the 21st century. As the US and the rest of the world continued to use precious resources at unsustainable rates, Cold War tensions escalated in 2052, becoming what would be known as the Resource Wars. Europe invaded the Middle East with the hope of securing precious oil reserves. China invaded Alaska for their natural resources, while America made the obvious move and annexed Canada in order to properly defend Alaska. Congratulations, Canada! You're no longer America's attic. Now you're their doormat. Calm down, Canadians. That joke was counterfactual. These escalations culminated in 2077 in what became known as the Great War. In a mere 2 hours, the worst fears of mutually assured destruction were realized as pretty much everyone and their mama launched a nuke, resulting in the wasteland seen in the present day. For better or worse, before Calamity struck, the US government partnered with the mysterious Enclave in order to bring about the infamous vaults. The vaults were intended, at least publicly, to save thousands of people from a nuclear holocaust. They ended up saving some people from nuclear destruction, but not without a couple of sickening experiments along the way. Of the 122 vaults, only a few had optimal conditions and released on time, so it's likely the majority of vaults were merely experiments. Some of the juiciest include a vault with 1 man and 999 women, and another with only 1 dude and a box of puppets. Oh, I hope those puppets made it out okay! With that, the stage is set for an interesting take on a post-nuked America, and we're finally done with our obligatory summary that anyone who has played the games already knew. Time for some analysis. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Fallout setting is that it's so realistic. Sure, it's set in an alternative version of reality, but we're not talking about a medieval fantasy world with elves and magic. Fallout separates itself from Bethesda's other flagship franchise, The Elder Scrolls, by building a realistic world that we could imagine actually existing in a parallel universe. Check out the details of the Resource War. Europe, integrated into one state through high-minded ideals, falls victim to humanity's insecurities and invades the Middle East for their oil. China, in turn, finally takes on their American rivals for their precious resources. And the US strong-arms Canada in order to protect its own interests. Are we talking about a fantasy world or our own reality? Real-life Europe, largely integrated into one state through high-minded ideals, is currently falling victim to humanity's insecurities as economic tensions threaten to pull it apart. China, locked in an unsteady alliance with America, is already the only major power that could threaten the US. And I don't think it's a big stretch to imagine America forcing Canada to bend if it came to it. But what about the vaults? Surely the US government wouldn't subject its own citizens to grotesque and immoral experiments. That's not realistic, is it? We'll come back to that question, but for now it's time to dive into the actual games. I would be more specific and summarize the plot of each game, but ain't nobody got time for that shit. What you do need to know is that each major installment of the Fallout franchise features a different protagonist, all with badass names like The Chosen One, The Lone Wanderer, The Courier, and The Vault Dweller. Those last two sounded more descriptive than badass, but at least we know how they spend their time. Each Fallout game also takes place in a different region of post-war America. California, Oregon, Washington, D.C., and Nevada. We now know that Fallout 4 will be set in a fifth region, Boston. There's also a major morality component to the games, especially Fallout 3. The player has the choice of making good or bad decisions, which eventually end up affecting the narrative. Let that all soak in. While you let the soothing sounds of context deep into your mental pores, we can come back to one of our previous questions. Would the US government subject its own citizens to grotesque and immoral experiments? Let's travel down the annals of history to find out. Annals. A clinical study was conducted from 1932 to 1972 by the U.S. Public Health Service to learn about the natural progression of untreated syphilis. 600 people were recruited for the study, but here's the catch. Those people were never told they had syphilis. Even after penicillin became the standard cure for the disease, each patient was left completely in the dark about their condition. This happened in real life and is the infamous Tuskegee experiment. But wait, there's more. During the whooping cough epidemic, the CIA introduced the virus into certain American communities to see how the effects would play out in the event of an actual attack. If that wasn't enough, while testing the effects of the atomic bombs that were used in World War II, the US experimented on unknown soldiers and hospitalized citizens by injecting them with weapon-grade plutonium to track the effects of the element on the human body and psyche. In another experiment, the CIA-run Project MK-Ultra funded what would be dubbed Sub-Project 68. The project involved administering electromagnetic shocks to the temple at 30 to 40 times the normal power. Effects ranged from forgetting one's own parents to being unable to talk. The military also tested mustard gas and other warfare chemicals on soldiers without their consent or knowledge that these dangerous elements were being forced on them. These are only some of the examples of real-life events that have happened to people thanks to the US government. And these are just the experiments. Let's not forget about the Japanese internment camps of World War II. The American government mandated that Japanese families leave their homes to live in these filthy and poorly run camps for an unknown period of time, ruining the lives of many innocent Japanese Americans who had never set foot in Japan and had no allegiance to their ancestral country. Sometimes we forget the Germans weren't the only ones with concentration camps. And who has any clue about what's happening in Area 51? Aliens? Marijuana experiments? We just don't know! The atrocities the American government has committed on its own citizens are so disturbing and alarming that they bring to light a horrifying question. Are the vaults and their grotesque experiments really that far-fetched? Perhaps they're exaggerated compared to real life, but the idea in general is not out of the ordinary. There is documented, undeniable proof that the US government has experimented on its own citizens before. Who knows what would happen if nuclear annihilation was imminent? But the point of this video isn't to wrap that tinfoil hat even tighter around your head. What we've tried to do is prove that Fallout's universe really isn't that much different from our own. With a few tweaks, the events of Fallout could easily happen in our world, grotesque government experiments and all. So if there's any deeper meaning to the Fallout games, it's this. If we want to survive as a species, we have to do everything in our power to keep the events of Fallout as fiction, not fact. America and the rest of the world are consuming at unsustainable rates, and if things don't change, we could face our own resource war in 60 years. With the deadliest weapons known to mankind at our disposal, will we be able to save ourselves? From ourselves? Fallout features soon-to-be 5 protagonists in 5 different locations because the kind of change needed for this world cannot be done by one lone hero in one place. It must be done by all of us everywhere. Good karma or bad, we always have a choice. And now we must choose. So the question is, will we change? Because war never changes. And that's the story you never knew. Whoa, that one got intense, didn't it? You know what's less intense but just as entertaining, probably? Our other videos. That's right, I said our because Treesicle isn't just one person, damn it! See? So check out the other videos on our channel, you sexy beast, and see if anything strikes your fancy. If you like what you see, consider subscribing to grow the Treesicle. Oh, that felt good. But alas, we don't have time to sit here and enjoy the wonders of a growing Treesicle. We have work to do! Or as a certain green wise man would say, back to work we must go.